Hey, friends, and welcome. Thanks for tuning into the Heat Press for Profit podcast. My name is Dave here. And of course, here at Stalls and Transfer Express, we always aim for our podcasts and, frankly, all of our educational content to inspire new ideas, help decorators learn, connect, and reach their own success, regardless of what that looks like, right? So be sure to join in here every single Friday live at noon Eastern time. And you could also tune into the community over at the Heat Press for Profit, sponsored by Stall's Facebook group, if you are not already a member. And many of you are probably tuning in over from the Facebook group. But like I mentioned, my name is Dave with Stalls and Transfer Express. You can catch me on the YouTube channel or in a lot of webinars or answering comments, of course, in those groups as well. But today, I am very excited to be chatting with a pal of mine that has been on the podcast before and been featured in a few videos. But I will pull in Justin Leader from JC Pro Design out in Salt Lake City, Utah. How are you doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Always a pleasure to talk to you, Justin. And I know from the last time that we talked to even when we visited last year, which if you haven't already seen the Heat Press Transformation video series that we did out with Justin, it's absolutely phenomenal. Still one of like the standout favorite shops I've been to, from the people to the way that you treat your employees. And we're going to get into that in just a little bit, and the way you've grown your businesses, which is like the big topic today, right? We're going to be talking a lot about growth and opportunities. But if you haven't seen that video, go out and check it out. It might be like a little bit of a time capsule with how fast you move with your business. But it is so insightful to see, hear your story, number one, see your employees and see the processes that you put in place to be incredibly efficient, incredibly effective, and grow your business from essentially what your living room to facilities, and even expanding, looking into the future. It's a great story. So if you haven't seen it already and you're listening out there, either on the podcast replay or live right now, cue it up on YouTube. It's over on Stalls TV. And yeah, like I mentioned, I've been to a lot of shops even since we came out and visited your shop out in Salt Lake City. And it still is such a good standout location of what you can do with all different types of printing technology, because you really you do have it all. I know a lot of decorators, focus on just heat printing or just screen printing or maybe just embroidery, but you were able to kind of bring it all in house, weren't you?
Yeah, we are. Pretty much the only thing we don't have is pad printing.
And that's as you kind of get into the promo market too, that could be quite lucrative. Is that something that you're looking to add?
Probably not, especially with the technology with UV DTF and those kind of things. That doesn't really make sense.
And with how much that I think UV DTF is kind of really blowing up into the market. And I will say the first UV DTF printer that I ever saw in person with my eyes was at your shop.
Yeah.
Seen them online and heard about them, read about them. I've seen UV DTF results, but yeah, you had it, and wow, that's cool. And and that's something that we're going to talk about here in just a little bit, is like the way that you really jump into technology, and you embrace it. You embrace new printing methods and then work to fill the capacity behind it. But today, specifically, as you may know by the title, maximizing growth and expanding markets, we are diving a little bit deeper into some maybe more higher level business goals or business conversations, looking at those success strategies that you've used that take JC Pro Design higher, and strategies that any of our audience listening at home could kind of take some inspiration from and help expand their own business, add value to their own shop, right? And maybe attract new markets that they otherwise maybe didn't think that they were right for, right? So like planning for the future and building that growth. And I see a whole bunch of our friends tuning in from all across the internet there, LinkedIn, YouTube, and as well as Facebook over and in Instagram. I will mention that if you are just tuning in right now, we are live, so that you could ask any questions. We'll pull them up on screen right here, and we'll be able to answer any questions live. And it's my favorite thing to interact with audiences out there, like our great community that we have as heat print decorators and apparel decorators of all different sizes. So, Justin, I know in our past conversations that you've made a lot of smart investments into equipment and, almost more importantly, people, right? Recently, just this year, you acquired a promo company essentially and took a big dive into the promo market. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's he was actually a broker that used us for his screen print when he primarily does promo, but he would use us for his screen print and everything. Started talking to him, working on numbers, and he needed more infrastructure to grow, which means, the back end where we have art and an assistant and customer service, that he doesn't have to be everything. And it is pretty incredible to see the difference that promo makes. And I've implemented it a lot with a lot of my customers now too.
And you kind of started from promotional material for those who maybe haven't watched the heat press transformation yet, which, side note, totally go do that, or have joined us for any of the other podcasts, that like you kind of started making merch as promotional merch for your own business, right?
Yeah. I owned a supplement company, and I found a bunch of different places that messed up a bunch of my stuff. So I figured I'd start with a silhouette and a heat press, and started in my living room, and people started asking, who does your stuff? And it just expanded from there.
So I guess it was pretty easy for you to understand the power of promotional merchandise.
Yes. Yes, it was. It's amazing what people will do for a t-shirt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so, with bringing on, the client base from another promotional products distributor or manufacturer, a company, uh, how has that kind of changed what you are servicing? Do you see a lot more promo goods, say, outside the traditional apparel space that you have been decorating, or you were like kind of a contract decorator for?
We haven't been doing a lot of the decoration on that. A lot of those Sage, ASI, and PPI distributors, they do it so low cost, it doesn't make sense for us to do it in-house.
Hmm.
However, for on-demand online stores, those kind of things, we're doing a lot more promo with UV DTF, and even we press Ultracolor Max on some journals and stuff like that.
Yeah, and for great results, I used interestingly enough, I use the leather patches, right?
Mhm.
So leather patches and traditionally applied to headwear, that, or maybe some outerwear sometimes, but put on like a nice little notebook, like it had this like super nice vintage vibe, and yeah, be able to produce those on demand. But you mentioned kind of like outsourcing orders too. So that's very interesting because we always have the conversation with a lot of decorators of like when to outsource, when to insource, and like, yeah, of course you are moving off some of those profits, but has had opening up that huge wide availability of all these promo products, has it positioned you as JC Pro as like this like superior one-stop shop then? And with that, have you seen any impact to your other decoration methods, your bulk screen printing, where somebody maybe wasn't coming to you, but now as a one-stop shop, you've kind of been able to reel a little bit more in?
It has. It definitely has. It is funny. People don't. Well, people do associate, but also they don't realize that promotional does kind of tie into screen print embroidery, and we're seeing more and more promo. Especially nowadays, people are more budget friendly and looking for cheap handout items, those kind of things. So promo has been growing exponentially.
Yeah, and a big, large portion that we've seen. Uh, I mean, just like your example, and so many other decorators out there, as you know, it's like that question. I know, just as in my history as an apparel decorator, where people come up to you like, they know I do shirts, right?
Mhm.
But like just this morning, my buddy's texting me like, "Hey man, I might need some banners. Like, do you know anybody who could hook me up with some banners?" So it's nice to be able to have all of those kind of tools in your tool belt that you could use.
Oh, absolutely. Doing banners has gotten us so many other customers. When they show up to pick them up and see our showroom with all the, oh, I didn't realize you did this too. Can I get a quote on some hats? And banners has been a big door opener for us.
Yeah, and so you've been doing banners kind of going way back too, haven't you?
Right. The first thing that I bought when I expanded beyond just the silhouette and the heat press was a print cut,
Mhm.
a wide format print cut. So we started doing banners 6 months after I started.
So yeah, a nice staple. And I would say even like, well, it's not like a promotional product. If you're going to be distributing promotional products, you're probably also going to have a banner.
Yeah, true. And there's actually a lot of industry specific places that you can contract banners out to. Like we even do a bunch of contract banners for those people that working out of their house.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so it's filling, I mean, you kind of serve both, up the supply chain and almost even down the supply chain then too.
Hmm.
That's rad. So it's kind of a big deal to acquire another company, right? Like that has to be such a monumental moment for you as a business owner, right? What kind of thoughts, is there a catalyst that like sparked it, or like what kind of thoughts went through your head? How did you prepare to make that decision or move forward with it?
The one with Colin in Small Lake City was it was pretty smooth. He's the one that brought it up to me. Is he's like, hey, if I need to expand, this is what I need to do, and I don't want to take all this time and train all these people. He's like, you have the infrastructure, let's work out a deal. So, and after, you got to look at the numbers, see customers, and the fact that he and I have been working together for the past 4 or 5 years, it made it pretty easy. Now, this other one that I'm working on, we're signing paperwork next week, is a contract embroidery shop. And this one is a lot bigger deal because there's employees coming with it. There's a lot of equipment coming with it, the lease on their building. So this one, it's been in the works for the last 3 or 4 months.
Oh man. So yeah, a lot easier when it's just like kind of, yeah, one guy, you're just pretty much buying the client base.
Hmm.
Versus, did any equipment come with that, or that original promo deal, or was that kind of just like a distributor and you're essentially just onboarding customers?
Just a distributor, and he's with us too now, so he's in charge of my sales team essentially.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're able to bring some of that experience to leverage it, alleviate a lot of that load off his shoulders, and that probably trickles down to benefit the customer, doesn't it?
It does. I was getting to the point where I couldn't handle all of my retail customers, especially with my good contract customers that I want to take care of. And now he's handling more of the retail customers. So it's worked out really well.
Oh man, a win-win for everybody, which kind of like, and you kind of touched on it a little bit there. Like my next follow-up question was going to be like, because expanding your customer base and bringing on maybe a new market that I know you guys were already kind of targeting that promo market, but it seemed like such a good fit to go out and kind of join forces. But like, yeah, how do you plan to handle the additional capacity, right? Like as you bring in more customers, you need to service them. Maybe you're bringing in more in-house work then as well. Yeah. So is it the personnel
It's
and obviously now equipment looking for an
yeah,
embroidery shop? So you got to tell me about that.
it is. It's hiring good people. Good people make your equipment. It doesn't matter how good of or nice of equipment you have if you don't have the right person running it.
Hmm. And that was
And
definitely something that I noticed being in your shop. So kind of this next acquisition, what does that look like exactly?
so it's they've been in business for 12 or 14 years. Um, the owner is looking to retire. He's actually going to come and work for the next 2 or 3 years to make sure that we're all trained up and help us with digitizing because he has over 30 years experience in the embroidery space.
Oh, wow. That's going to be incredibly valuable to lean on and use that because you guys have been doing embroidery just for what, over 2 years, maybe 2 years
Year and a
coming up,
half.
a year and a half. Because yeah, that was fairly new when we saw it. So how just, I mean, honing in now just on say embroidery in the past year and a half, starting from zero, what does that look like? Because that was like a continual evolvement, and I know like just in our conversations too, like in the heat press transformation series, I believe you said something like every single piece of equipment or technology I've invested in, I've filled to capacity within a year. So obviously the need to bring on more, you filled it to capacity. And yeah, just that evolution of like just honing in on one print method as embroidery. Walk me through the evolution for you at JC Pro.
So the evolution was with how much contract work we did, also doing the numbers on how much I was contracting out. And it's funny, the guys that I'm buying are the guys that handle all of my contract embroidery work. So again, good relationship. We've worked together for the last 4 or 5 years. It's been pretty crazy how fast we've grown the embroidery side.
Hmm.
I should have bought an 8 head instead of a 6 head, but the cost, and you get a little gun shy when you're talking that kind of money.
Yes, absolutely. And
And yeah,
yeah, you want to reduce your risk, right?
yes, exactly. And um, I started looking at another machine, and then Jeff, he was talking to me. He's like, "Hey, do you still want to buy us out?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's talk." And now I don't need to buy a machine. I'm buying 17 heads. So
Yeah. Well, and now does that come with clients then as well that'll be onboarded in there?
yes, and they've already talked to all of their contract customers, and pretty much all of them are staying on with them. So they'll stay
That's
on with us.
that's fantastic. And then especially to keep, you know, some people too that they're used to working with. So it's not, I mean, for the end customer, it's going to be a very seamless transition. I think that's something that like I've always been very focused on from even like a marketing standpoint. But I know you've been focused on as well is the overall customer experience, and maybe something that like decorators just starting out are maybe more focused on like the product and the quality, which yes, absolutely important. But you could get product and quality everywhere. You can't necessarily get the experience. And I feel like a lot of people buy because of experience. Do you see that too?
Yeah, we do. And that was one of the things Jeff told me is he's like, I started telling all my customers that the biggest change is you're going to see our order confirmations come through with mock-ups and everything, all the pricing to approve. Um, you can still directly contact Jeff for those of them working with him. He's like, but we also have our back end that our contract customers have a portal that they can see the status of every one of their jobs. And
Man.
those guys weren't quite tech savvy or big enough to do that, have the personnel where we do.
So yeah, really kind of upgrading it to the 21st century. And yeah, we'll talk about tech and software and automation because I feel like those are the biggest buzzwords in the industry right now. But you kind of mentioned it before we move on from that. That like people are you could have the best machinery without people. Uh, you don't have the best machinery,
Right.
right? You don't have the best results.
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah.
getting the full value out of that. So like realistic, like, and I know that impacts results, but is there anything specific that like you would give advice for a decorator, maybe looking to hire somebody or looking to, kind of take that foray, that step into into hiring employees and the impact that they make to your shop and the results?
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to hiring an employee, one of the best lines I've ever heard in a book was hire slow, fire fast. As soon as you get that inkling that they're not a good fit, just cut ties, get rid of them,
Hmm.
find somebody else. Uh, we use Indeed to hire people, so we get to see resumes and everything come through. And you can tell somebody's work ethic by looking at it. Once you interview somebody, you get an idea, if they show up on time, if they show up early, um, how they present themselves, if they're going to be a good fit for the culture that you're looking to have at your business.
Hmm. And yeah, I mean, like that first employee probably is the hardest because that's the learning curve and the most important to like the make or break, especially for like when you're moving from just being a solo entrepreneur to a now a manager, a leader. How was that like for your process when you went through it the first time?
I was pretty fortunate. It was a friend of mine that had helped me in my living room before. She had gotten let go, so it was, hey, yeah, come on. I will say the hardest thing as a business owner is hiring that first employee and giving up the control and the trust. And after one, it's a lot easier, but that
Yeah.
first one is rough. And just realize that they are going to make mistakes, but you did too when you were starting out. Stuff that's common sense to you isn't common sense to them yet,
Hmm.
but it will be. And as long as you find the right people that are happy and work hard, you can train them.
Yeah, you use it as like the coaching opportunities or mentoring, right? But patience is a virtue, it sounds like.
It is. Yeah, we've screwed up our fair share amount of product.
It happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Misprints happen. We just try to reduce them as much as we can, so it doesn't become, it doesn't start harming the profitability of the shop. Which it sounds like with your growth, you have had no problem doing that. So, kind of moving on from the personnel aspect of it, one thing that does impact, I think, the day to day is the technology that you build behind it. You mentioned all of these automated order systems that you're going to be able to have better communication, number one, to your customers, but better than organization, maybe even like internal proofing structures or mock-ups for employees to look at, engage product to. Could you talk about a little bit of that you've implemented in your shop?
Yeah, absolutely. We have been using a virtual assistant to do all of our data entry and mock-ups. I just hired another in-house artist to help with that, as well as separations.
Mm-hmm.
It's software and systems and processes are stuff that I wish I would have invested in earlier. Trying to come up with your systems and processes and those kind of things after you already have a few employees is way more difficult than getting them in place. So those of you just starting out, start working on those.
Yeah, it's never too early to start. So before you started kind of outsourcing some of that manual data entry stuff like that, was that something that you were doing yourself?
Yes, it was. And you don't realize how much time it takes, and it's hard to give that up it's like, well, I know what the customer's looking for, so I might as well just do it.
Mm-hmm.
No, send it over. You can train people, get them up to speed to where they can do it. It's just giving up that and trusting that they're going to learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that certain I don't even want to try to quote it, but it's like that delegation chart. Like, is it important? Is it urgent? Do it. If it's not important and not urgent, like delegate it. Essentially, it's a lot more complex than that. So don't take my word specifically.
That is a great way to put it. Is based on that level of importance.
Mm-hmm. And I know that was something that I think we touched on the last time you were here on the Heat Press for Profit podcast. Was Richard, right? One of the managers in your shops was doing a lot of artwork hands-on, where he didn't necessarily. It was taking up some of that time. That it's like that's a trainable skill. Being a manager to the employees, being present on the floor. Was something that that's not something that he could delegate, and you guys did implement some change there, didn't you?
Yes, we did. We took that off of Richard's plate. So he'll do some of the complex separations, but for the most part, the separations are done by somebody else.
Mm-hmm. And what impact does that? Yeah, what impact does that give to the shop in that big benefit?
It's made a huge impact. Big thing is Richard doesn't have to hurry and do art because something's breaking or somebody has a question or, oh, hey, the screen tore. What do we do? That kind of thing. He can answer those questions, help employees out, figure out scheduling conflicts, deal with people not showing up, that kind of stuff, instead of being stuck to his computer trying to rush through art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's not a result that works for anybody. And you mentioned that you even kind of brought on another person to do artwork back in-house, or is that another virtual position?
It's back in-house. It's for the virtual assistant is great, but we want somebody that we can run down and say like, hey, this person brought in this handwritten note, put it in for us.
Gotcha. And then I think too, what even just being there and being able to see the shop really truly understand the process that you specifically have in-house. Do you see a benefit to that as well?
Yes, absolutely. That's another thing too, is where we are getting into the more on-demand era, having somebody that can make artwork changes immediately instead of having to, granted you're the right virtual assistant, they're pretty quick, but having somebody in-house is just that much faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just get up and go take a little stroll over there and like, hey, could you help me out with this?
Mm-hmm.
This is an issue we need to address right now. But that was something like that, I mean, I guess when Richard was doing it, did you identify that need to hire that position, or it wasn't until like you saw the success with taking that off his plate, allowing him to be more of a manager, that you're like, this would be great to still have in-house, but now I fully justify the value of bringing somebody on.
That is more accurate. Is after taking it off of Richard's plate and seeing the impact it made, it started realizing, oh well, how much is that going to take off of me having to do a random mock-up or design this piece of artwork for one of my really good customers, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Now you mentioned kind of print on demand a little bit there, right? Which I think is the very hot topic. And I heard a quote the other day that was like, print on demand doesn't work without software or some level of automation, just because of the small minimum quantities, right? And a lot of like the manual touch points, and bringing on a wide variety of promo products. I think you mentioned UV as being part of that as well, but I'm sure all other print methods, even down to apparel, right? How are you guys integrating that in the business now?
We actually recently joined up with Fulfill Engine, met them through you guys. So,
Mm-hmm.
and pretty impressive software that they have. And we're really looking forward. We were using Spirit Sail, and converting over to Fulfill Engine, it's going to be a game changer with the automations that they have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one thing that like I feel like more and more people talk about in the industry of, uh, you know, yeah, it's great, but like I can't sit there and manually tabulate all these SKUs and order them through my supplier or check with like out of stock stuff. So like just really simplifying it so it just comes in like any other order into the shop, out of the shop with as little touch points as possible. The one shop I was just talking with was looking at doing embroidery on demand, right? And doing embroidery on demand, it's like from the time that we even get the file set up, we manually go order the hat before it's even on, before we even hoop it. We're losing money on this thing because they're selling at like retail prices to stay competitive and they're high end styles. And it's like, I feel like so many decorators don't necessarily look at that. And that's so smart and forward sighted for a shop to go, hey, we're losing money before we even put this on press. Is this worth it for us? You know? Do you have any I guess advice or any stories that maybe you've run into in the past where you saw something like that, identified it, and changed any process or said no to a customer?
Mm-hmm. Being that DTG was one of the first technologies I brought on after heat printing, I did get approached a lot for on demand, and of course you agree to it, figure it out, and after running for a little while, you start crunching all the numbers and realize like, oh, I'm making $5 an hour doing this, or oh, I lost money on that job. Let's figure out what touch points we can automate, what things we can do to just make it as seamless as possible. And so that's where now we're with Fulfill Engine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you utilizing all of the, I mean, a whole bunch of different even print methods that run through that software. Yeah, really. I mean, if you're a decorator, I watched, man. I don't want this to sound like a commercial for Fulfill Engine at all, but it's just something that I know I'm really excited about. I worked for the last print shop that I worked for, split off to a humongous on-demand division, right? Like doing national clients, the biggest names in the industry. Like when you're on calls with somebody who has a name that you've heard since you were a kid, you know, and it's like, wow, like this is actually this dude on this call talking about setting up an online store. I saw how much involvement went into it, and a team built an entire system with like a scan to print over the span of 2 years, and it was clunky and it broke, and everybody would work late on a Friday night when a release would go wrong. And it's like customers' orders aren't shipping out, nothing's syncing anymore. And like to see a platform now, I mean, now granted, this was 10 years ago, but see a platform now that encapsulates all that. I'm not even going to try a third time to say that word, but that kind of puts it all together to really tie it up. And that's, I'm sure probably the next time that we chat, maybe we'll get even more into on demand. But that's awesome to hear that you're fully embracing that, and you've been running kind of those online stores through Spirit Sale for quite a while too, though, haven't you?
Yeah, we have. It's been probably 3 years now, 4 years.
Wow.
We had a couple really small ones until when COVID hit. We did a lot of for bars and service industry to raise money for their employees.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it really took off for us.
Yeah. The e-commerce, I think in general, just exploded, but like for the good cause. I was going to ask like what kind of clientele do you currently support, I guess, in the online stores? Is it kind of the same that just kind of carried over, or you bring on any like local schools, sports, any spirit wear leagues or anything like that?
We haven't seen a lot of spirit wear leagues with the on demand, especially nowadays. People are more budget conscious, so they're like, you know what, we'll order for the whole team and figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're seeing our on demand stores are tech industries,
Mm.
people that, companies that don't want to have to handle it themselves.
Yeah.
We do have a few nonprofits that we do that are ongoing fundraisers that never close. We also have some for nonprofits that are, you know, these items go live on this date, they close on this date, so they'll be there in time. Like we ship them out, and they'll be there in time for their event or their walk, and go from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's we've seen a lot of the power of the on-demand printing for just like you mentioned it, like even the restaurants and bars, right? Like, yeah, it's nice to maximize profit by buying bulk, right? But sometimes, just like when you were talking about like making an investment into embroidery, making a large, substantial investment into merchandise for a restaurant or a small bar could be like sometimes it's not as easy. So for them to be able to still make money, turn a profit, and not take the risk and guess of like, will this style sell or not? Like that you see, I think that's just like the rise of on demand, the e-commerce, the I don't know, that maybe the Amazon economy that we live in, where it's like I want to buy it and I want it now.
Yeah, that's there's one of our bigger bar customers. He orders in bulk, and it's because we did run an online store for him, and he did pretty well. We did quite a bit, and he had ordered bulk before we did the online store, and was talking to me about how much they were doing, and we were figuring everything out. And he's like, "I sell double when people have it here." So he started stocking it. But we have other bars, other restaurants that just are totally happy doing the on demand. They have QR codes to, hey, here's our merch, stickers on the tables.
Hmm. Well, and that's, I think, like really important the way that, because on demand printing, I feel like it was the same thing as like direct to garment, where it was like, oh man, like this is gonna ruin bulk printing. But some decorators have found that like it even helps them in some cases free up capacity for the more profitable jobs, even on a say like a automatic screen printing press, right? Where it's taking those other clients, or it's building the solution as a whole, like what you have, where you have every decoration method available and every way that you could sell apparel, decorated custom apparel, uh, for that full solution.
It really is. And as you run the stores, you start to see trends, how much they're selling. And so us as a business owner, for example, one of our stores, like, well, they're going to do this many pieces, so let's do a big run, average of these sizes, and if we end up with a little bit of extra inventory, we end up with it, but our margins are higher now because we're selling it on demand
Yep.
and
Yep. Yeah.
ship it out in a day or two.
Yep, you're charging that price, and yeah, be able to fulfill it a little bit easier. And I think that's the power of like looking at that data and being analytic about it and not guessing, because then that's going to ensure your profitability, and having that relationship with your customer to know that like they're there for you.
Exactly. And don't get emotional,
Yeah,
don't, hey, we're going to do this because I know this store is going to take off. No, deal with the on demand, deal with the hard stuff until it does take off, and then you can do the bulk and ship them out.
focus on the facts.
Yes.
And then for like those, I mean, like let's say like the customers that, because I don't remember what decorator it was, but I heard a story of like it was the best like testimonial for like offering any little semblance of an on-demand program, was a customer who had told me like, I lost customers because I wanted to focus on bulk. That's what I wanted to do, and customers weren't moving. And now this was pandemic time, so kind of sounds very
Yeah.
similar to your example, but like as it was pandemic time, like I'm not good, like I can't do the bulk printing. And instead of just doing a lower quantity, they ended up losing the account to somebody who was able to do on demand. So it allows you to be a little bit more flexible. And of course, I don't want to steer any decorators in the wrong direction. You know your business and what's the most profitable for you, and do what makes sense for you. But offering these different services, even like how we're talking about promo products, right? Like where it really just builds value for you as a company.
Exactly. And signing up with the promo distributors like Sage, ASI, PPAI makes a big difference. It seems like it's a big investment up front, but it's really not. 1 or 2 orders and it's paid for, and you have access to everything.
Yeah, right at your fingertips, an entire network to support you. That's, I think, what if you're unfamiliar with any of those networks, like it's there to help you succeed.
Yeah, and I think you guys offer a discount to PPAI members too. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not, but
that's a little tidbit that's buried at 35 minutes into this podcast.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're 35 minutes. We should be probably wrapping this up. I know we could always chat for hours. One kind of like piece of advice that I always love to like get out there on these podcasts is like, when you are scaling your business, when you're growing the business, what are some of the kind of larger challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them to stay on the right side of success?
Learn when to say no. That is huge. We all get in that growth mindset. Yeah, we can handle anything till you fall on your face. And know when you can say no, like know your capacities, know what you're capable of. Growing too fast is definitely a thing. And we went through it. We grew too fast, had to take a step back, and then started growing again. So that's a big thing, is just make sure you know when to say no, what you're capable of.
Yeah. And I feel like most recently, it's so important. I like just that is the most sound advice. And I feel like for me in my own personal life, like that was the number one thing, right? Learning to say no as a freelance designer or any semblance of an apparel decorator. So it's refreshing to hear you put that perspective on it as well. But kind of like, as you talked about that example of like direct to garment, where it's like, yeah, this could be costing me money. And there's always like, you could chase that possibility of like, oh man, that guy's bringing more work. There's more work coming down the line. This is going to be a great thing, in the long run. But it's hard to take that gamble when you don't look at the facts and like, no, it's just not worth it to do. Right.
Exactly. It's first interactions with a customer. You have to treat them like they're not going to do anything and hope for the best.
Yeah. So with that great piece of advice, another kind of great piece of advice for decorators, maybe just starting out or more established, how do you stay up to date on like current industry trends and or staying relevant with your audience, or like new markets, even with like the promo industry?
So going to shows, like I do go to Impressions every year in Long Beach. I'm going to Print United in September in Vegas. I go every year. It's in Vegas because it's, a 5-hour drive for me or an hour flight. So I go to the shows. I'm part of a bunch of different Facebook groups, as well as like some industry specific groups like Shirt Lab Tribe and a couple similar like that. So sign up for newsletters. It seems like it's a lot of work reading different articles, but it helps a ton.
And like, you synthesize then what works for you. You pull little bits and pieces of, this works for me. Oh, that sounds cool for the future, but I don't think I could implement something like that right now. Right.
Exactly. And you get to see what other people's experiences are too in the different Facebook groups. People are never shy. So you see the good and the bad and the ugly. And it's definitely helped a lot with our decisions on different pieces of equipment to jump into, and those that we're still staying away from for now.
Yeah. That's always good. Like, and that's what you kind of touched on shows too, right? Like that community. And I will say, like, the apparel decorating community is just insane, right? I was in the music community for so long, and like that is technically not in competition with each other, but like in this global economy we live in, everybody's in competition with each other in one way or another. But with apparel decorating, everybody's so willing to help somebody else out and kind of pull them up, and it lifts the entire industry up as a whole, and really kind of helps people when they're just getting started, or even in business, like you mentioned, like looking at certain pieces of equipment. And there's shops all the time that'll be like, oh yeah, you're looking at buying this specific heat press or this specific piece of embroidery equipment, like we have one, come on in and take a look at how we're using it. And it's like, I don't know, it's so refreshing and beautiful to see that like there's that level of community that I feel like a lot of other industries, and even something like music, where it's like it should be collaborative. It should be a community where it becomes much more of a competition, which I think harms that overall growth, right?
Exactly. This industry is one of the most interesting when it comes to that, because it's either the people that are so hardcore every single person is competition, or
Hmm.
we're all friends, you know there's plenty of work to go around for all of us.
Hmm.
I'm happy to help anybody get started, help them figure stuff out. And I think that helps us more too, right?
Hmm.
Those of us that are willing to share get more back.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And I will say I have met a fair share of like, nope, my door is closed, and nope, you're not going to know what machines I use, and nope, like there's a lot of that, especially like I feel like in some cases some smaller decorators as they're like getting started, where it's like what you've learned from somebody putting themselves out there, and that's what I really find refreshing. Uh, about owners and entrepreneurs like you, and there's a whole bunch of other ones out on the internet that like take time out of their day, take time out of their own business success to help others up. And I think that's so cool. And something that you mentioned too about like going to trade shows, right? I love the people at trade shows. Yeah, sure. Cool. It's great to go see equipment, right? It's great to go see education, see the latest innovations in the industry. I'm a nerd when it comes to putting ink on any type of substrate. So, like, I am there for that. But every single time I leave the most impact on me, uh, and I've heard this from a lot of other decorators, is the people, the community. You find your tribe, right? It's I could only nerd out about t-shirts and printing, or being an entrepreneur so much at home, that like when you get in a room of like-minded peers who, oh, have you tried this? Have you seen this? Hey, have your customers been doing something like this too? Where like you really get to build that up. Do you see that too?
I do. I When I first started going, I was going just to look at equipment, and now it's, oh, hey, I get to run into so and so from this company, and oh, I get to go to dinner with these guys, or oh, we get to do a class taught by this guy. And it's also really fun to see how people act, right? The different companies, seeing the different levels of energies and how the different companies interact with their customers.
Hmm. Yeah, and that alone, just when we talk about customer experience, kind of coming like back full circle, like that customer experience you get to experience firsthand, um, and yeah, a big aspect of that past just the product, right?
Exactly. Yeah, your guys is those of you that haven't been to a trade show, if you go to a stalls booth, the energy is always just upbeat. Everybody's willing to help. You usually get to press something if you want to.
Hmm.
Your guys' booth is always one of the fun ones. I always love the M&R booth. Um, the people at M&R are great people, and
Hmm.
it's really fun to see the and different energy levels, different people, and how they interact.
Hmm. Yeah, and I appreciate saying that about us. I like to think we're fun, but I don't get to like necessarily walk the entire show floor to see how fun other people are. But we definitely try to bring nice, big, colorful, creative booths that do show off, all the technology, and of course, we would love to get your hands on and printing anytime at any show, big or small. We're always doing some kind of fun activation and showing, just the latest and greatest of what you could accomplish with just a single piece of heat press, which your heat press department has even went through a lot of changes over the years too, hasn't it?
It has, starting with heat press, that's always been one of our primary focuses, is keeping that department and being known as one of the best heat press decorators in Utah, working on the nation, right? But
Hmm. On the way,
um,
on the way.
on the way. And we have expanded the area that it's taking up in our small shop. I posted a picture of it a couple of months ago in the Heat Press for Profit Facebook group. And we're looking to add, as soon as we get more space, we're trying to find a bigger building. We'll be adding more heat presses and more personnel to that department.
I still tell the story of how productive, profitable, and just like well set up when we were there for the heat press transformation in your shop, and it was just like a spare office that you had loaded down with. There was, I think, an auto clam in there. There was 2 360s. You had a dual air fusion. Like there was so much in one little office that like the decorating potential from such a tiny footprint was like, it's etched into my memory now forever.
Yeah. And now they actually have room to count stuff out. There's 4 8-foot tables for them to actually count out the jobs without having to count them out and carry them in. And
Yeah.
we still have our 1 dual air. I wish I had room for more, but we have 4 or 5 auto clams, and we're up to 4 360s now too.
Ooh. Yeah, because I with just like the station where it's like one operator pretty much operates 2, right?
Exactly. And with embroidered patches having a little bit longer press time, it's pretty easy for one operator to run 2 presses.
Mm-hmm. And do you see that like using dimensional products on headwear that opens up capacity on the embroidery machines too?
It has. It's opened up a ton, and it's also given people that option that, hey, we can't embroider that, but we could do it out of a woven patch. The detail's too small. Let's
Too
do it
many
out of a patch.
colors. Yeah.
Or sublimated patches, your guys' print stitch patches. PVC has been huge this year, though. PVC has been our biggest one this year.
That one's definitely been on the rise. I feel like leather's always pretty popular too, and those styles. But yeah, the big, thick, dimensional PVC, definitely like a nice premium option for any quantity, and decorate it with just a heat press. No need to bring on more embroidery equipment. But when you fill the capacity, you got to bring it on.
Exactly. Well, and when you're talking embroidered patches too, by the time you factor in how many stitches it is, it's cheaper to just order the patch and heat press it on than it is to stitch it out.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Or bring on an entire embroidery company to help.
Well, still, there's that fine line. It's like, hey, we can get a patch for $3 or $4. That's going to be 10,000 stitches if we were to sew it on a hat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 10,000 stitches takes 20 minutes.
Yep. It adds up, and it is all fixed time. You can't have a time machine. And I think that's something too, when we like kind of going back to like the profitability, ensuring that your time, your employees' time, and the materials are all accounted for, even down to like overhead, like there's certain things that I feel like are sometimes overlooked by decorators, and it's the hidden costs that are sneaking through the cracks and not allowing them to fully grow to that full potential, even though maybe the numbers that they're looking at look right.
The biggest thing that I will say to those of you starting out, figuring out your numbers, one thing you're never going to take into account is the time it takes you to check product in, count it out. If you have to remove a bag off of individually bagged items, you don't really factor that in when you're working on your pricing, and you really, really need to.
Yeah, fantastic tip. I will say, one hat order when they're all in individual bags and there's a half an hour down the drain.
Yeah, or any safety vests.
Yes.
Every safety vest is individually bagged. Every premium item, really, any retail brand item, North Face, all of that's individually bagged. Storm Tech's all individually bagged. You really need to factor in, hey, this is going to take somebody, even those couple of seconds, but on 100 items, that's 5 or 10 minutes.
And the little bit of time there, like that's such a perfect example. I'm so glad you brought that up. Like that little bit of trickle that just falls through the cracks, that like, man, I thought we ran the numbers on this. This was supposed to work for us, and then it doesn't. So we are vastly over time here today, and I really, really appreciate the conversation. Want to shout out some of our friends out on the internet. Frank says, "Happy Friday, guys." Craig out in New Jersey says, "Happy Friday, Dave." We have some international listeners. Justin Paul, greetings from South Africa, and Joyce saying happy Friday as well. Darren Plank from Topeka, Kansas, and good morning. It's quite early morning, I guess, for you out there in Utah. It's midday here on the East Coast.
Yeah, it's not too bad. We're 2 hours behind you.
Yeah, not too. It could be worse. It could be. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right?
Yeah, it could be Hawaii, right?
Just 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Or maybe I guess a little bit later than that. Before I let you go here, Justin, I do want to thank you so much for joining us here today. Looking forward, what are the next steps? What do you have planned? It sounds like you already got a full plate looking forward from what we've heard, but even past that, what's on deck for JC Pro Design?
Our primary focus right now is more space. We're
Mhm.
looking for a bigger building. Once we have the bigger building, we'll be bringing in the other embroidery company all under one roof, as well as expanding the heat press department
Nice.
and
Now,
probably adding another automatic screen press.
wow. So you're kind of bringing it in for every decoration method. And it's interesting. It's really great to hear you say equipment too, right? Because I feel like a lot of people uh, go like, we need more space for warehousing space. We need more space for boxes. We need more space for, not necessarily like revenue generating. So yeah, I mean, I always really liked the flow of how you had orders coming in and out of the shop. Where it kind of like comes in and then it goes right back out. So you're utilizing, I think, space really well, it sounds like.
We are. We've been told by a few different industry experts that they're extremely impressed with how we handle what little space we have, how much product we're moving through that space. And it will be nicer to have a bigger shipping and receiving area. That comes with more equipment because we know more product's going to show up
Mhm.
and just acquiring more customers.
Yeah, and I think looking back on your past, right, you have this proven track record of this like this steady growth. So even like I bet in the new space you're looking for like even future proofing, knowing that you'll be adding more sometime down the road, or at least enjoy the extra elbow room, right?
Right. We are looking to. I'm hoping that we can get a space that's going to be our forever home or something that's good for the next 5 years at least, 5 to 10.
Hmm.
But who knows what we'll be able to find and what we can get.
Yep.
It's still an interesting market right now. Slim pickings here in Utah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think and that's something like the real estate costs are, through the roof. And yeah, until it starts coming down or something changes, I could see that being an absolute challenge. So I wish you the absolute best of luck. I'm always in your corner, Justin, room
Yeah,
for you. And that I'm always just floored by the great work that you guys are doing out there in Salt Lake City. And one of these days, very, very soon, we'll come back on, stop out back by. Maybe when you get the new, the new place, you move everything all into one. We'll come on back out and do let's look back from where we were last time we visited to where we are now. And yeah, hopefully one of those dinners you mentioned or hanging out for those trade shows will be with me and the rest of the Stalls crew when we see you in Vegas for Printing United coming up. And man, just 5.5 weeks, I think. It's coming up
yeah,
very, very
yeah.
quickly.
It's coming up real fast, and I can see if you can make it to dinner with us on Wednesday night.
I will be there for absolute sure. Yeah. And
All right.
always a pleasure to hang out with you and the crew and see all the cool stuff, meet all the cool people. If you aren't already signed up for Printing United out in Vegas, ditch your family, ditch your work, and come on out. I guarantee it'll be 100% worth it with the people you meet, the things you see in like that show out of any of the shows. 3 days almost isn't even enough to walk the entire show floor. It's so large. You kind of need that plan, but it's great to be able to connect with the events that they have, the education that's going on. And of course, yeah, we love our trade shows. It's one of my favorite things to get out and actually, talk with decorators. It's great to talk over the internet like this, but it is even better to
Yeah.
talk in real life and connect and really drive any solutions to what we can. So just thank you so much for hanging out today. And I look forward to seeing you in just a few weeks and always wishing you the best out in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Yeah. Likewise, it'll be great to see you again. It's always great seeing you guys in the Stalls crew. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. And for everybody, thank you for joining us here today. And thanks for tuning in to the Heat Press for Profit podcast. Here at Stalls, we are always happy to help decorators of all sizes learn, connect, and reach their own success. Be sure to check out stalls.com as well as transferexpress.com for heat printing, for heat printing and apparel decorating solutions. But until next time, we'll see you. Happy pressing.